WWE wants you to believe LA Knight is too old for a world title at 43. CM Punk just won his again at 47. Do the math on that for 2 seconds, and the whole excuse falls apart. Sami Zayn found out the same way. 20 years chasing his first world title, 1 night in Saudi Arabia to finally hold it, and 9 days to lose it to a guy 5 years older than him. The pattern holds everywhere you look. Bron Breakker is 28 and stuck in the tag division. Trick Williams just got his first real look at 31. Brock Lesnar is closing in on 50 and still landing marquee matches. R-Truth is defending tag gold at 54. The door under 30 has been shut since Bray Wyatt walked through it in 2017. Every big call WWE makes right now runs through the same number. Who gets trusted with the belt, and who gets told to wait? That's the age problem. And the math behind it explains almost everything wrong with WWE's next 5 years. In 2000, the average age of a top WWE star sat in the low 30s. Guys were winning their first world title at 24, 25, 26 years old. Brock Lesnar took the WWE Championship at 25. The Rock won his first world title at 26. John Cena was 27, Randy Orton was 24, the youngest world champion in the company's modern history. Watching the old highlight reels now feels like a different sport. 24-year-old world champions used to be the goal, not the exception. That was standard practice. A wrestler spent a few years getting built up, got the rub from the right veteran, and by their mid-20s they were carrying pay-per-views. The system produced new main eventers on a rolling basis, because the guys at the top eventually got hurt, got older, or got replaced by the next wave coming up behind them. Look at the roster right now. CM Punk is the undisputed WWE champion at 47. Roman Reigns has held the World Heavyweight Championship in his 40s. Brock Lesnar is 49 and still landing a marquee spot on the summer's biggest show. R-Truth, half of the current WWE Tag Team Champions, is 54 years old, wrestling on a roster with guys who weren't born when he debuted. It's not only the champions either. Look at the regular pay-per-view main eventers who aren't even holding gold right now. Seth Rollins is 40, Drew McIntyre is 41, and Jey Uso sits right there with Rollins at 40. The entire main event conversation, title or no title, clusters into the same decade of birth dates. Even inside a single division, the split shows up in the same night's lineup. The Vision, Bron Breakker and Austin Theory, are both 28 and holding the World Tag Team Championship. Damian Priest and R-Truth are defending the other set of tag titles at 43 and 54. Same show, same division, 2 completely different generations standing on either side of it. R-Truth holds an actual record for it. He's the oldest tag team champion in that title's entire history. The same championship also crowned its youngest champion ever, Dominic Mysterio, at 24. Both records exist inside one title's history. WWE has proven it can build either kind of champion. Lately, it keeps choosing the same one. Add up the men holding recognized championships across Raw and SmackDown right now, and the number sits somewhere in the mid-40s. That's the current baseline. AEW's average roster age sits noticeably younger, and it's not close. Same industry, same era, 2 completely different approaches to who gets to be the guy. The last man to win the WWE Championship under the age of 30 was Bray Wyatt back in 2017. 9 years since anyone under 30 got through. Every year that stays true makes the pattern look less like a streak and more like a policy. It's the compounding result of a company that keeps reaching for the same guys year after year because the same guys keep drawing. When the same guys keep getting the call, the guys underneath them stop being prospects. They just get older, waiting. There's a real reason none of these guys are stepping aside. Biology changed underneath the entire industry, and the timeline changed with it. In the 80s and 90s, wrestlers worked something close to 300 nights a year, on canvas that had almost no give in it. To survive that schedule, an entire generation leaned on painkillers, alcohol, and steroids that were barely regulated at all. By 40, a lot of those guys weren't performers anymore. They were injured men doing a dangerous job on borrowed time, and some of them didn't make it much past that. The list of wrestlers from that era who died young is long enough that it stopped being shocking a while ago. The current roster operates under completely different conditions. The touring schedule is lighter. House shows got scaled back hard. Chair shots to the head are gone. Intentional blading is gone. Banning unprotected chair shots alone cut down on the kind of long-term brain trauma that used to end careers early, without anyone noticing until it was too late. The wellness policy actually tests for the stuff that used to be everywhere backstage. Then there's the part that really pushed the wall back further: regenerative medicine. Guys are running on platelet-rich plasma injections and stem cell therapy now, treating torn cartilage and degrading joints in a way earlier generations simply couldn't. Rey Mysterio has talked about it publicly, so has Seth Rollins. months. Ronda Rousey used stem cell treatment on a knee injury that would have ended a career a decade earlier, and kept competing at an elite level anyway. This has become a routine part of how a wrestling career gets extended. Watch old pay-per-views from the 90s, and the difference in how bodies moved by the late 30s is obvious on camera. Guys favoring one knee, slower comebacks off the ropes. It reads on screen even now. The current top of the card doesn't move that way. Punk still ties Zayn up in fast exchanges for 20 minutes at 47. Lesnar is still moving like a nightmare at 49. The eye test backs up the medical explanation completely. The wall that used to sit at 38 now sits closer to 50. CM Punk is 47 and still moving like a main eventer. Finn Balor is closing in on 45 and still doing moonsaults off the top rope like his knees never got the memo. Watching guys 45 and up still deliver performances like that used to feel like an anomaly. Now it's just Tuesday. Nobody's body is making this decision for WWE anymore. WWE has to make it on purpose. So far, it hasn't. WWE isn't an independent wrestling company chasing house show money anymore. It's a piece of TKO Group Holdings, the same parent company that owns the UFC, and that answers to shareholders the way any publicly traded property does. That changes what counts as safe. When you're filling a 60,000-seat stadium off the back of a guaranteed television deal, you're not booking for the hardcore fan who'll show up regardless. You're booking for the casual buyer, the sponsor, the international broadcast partner who needs a name they already recognize on the poster, whether the show is in Ohio or Riyadh. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, names that carry weight with people who haven't watched a full episode of Raw in years. When Raw moved its flagship show to Netflix, the company locked in guaranteed money, regardless of who's actually on the card that week. Great for the balance sheet. It also means WWE has less pressure than ever to develop new attractions on its own timeline, because the check clears either way. Here's the trap in that logic. The only way a young star stops being unproven is by getting the exposure that proves it. Main event matches, real screen time in the moments that matter. WWE won't hand that over because the guy hasn't proven himself yet, and he can't prove himself without it. The company built a loop that guarantees its own outcome, then treats the outcome as proof the whole approach was right all along. Look at what's happening with SummerSlam this August. CM Punk is on the card, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins. Every big name the safe bet logic says should guarantee a sellout. As of the past few weeks, fewer than 25,000 tickets have sold for a stadium that holds over 70,000, and WWE has reportedly been worried about it internally for over a month. The company keeps reaching for the same legends because they're supposed to be the guaranteed draw. Right now, even the guaranteed draw isn't drawing. WWE has been here before, just under a different logo. In the late 90s, WCW had the most stacked roster in wrestling, and access to young talent that included Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, and Rey Mysterio. Management kept the spotlight locked on Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, and Kevin Nash instead, guys who'd already made their money a decade earlier. Younger talent got buried in squash matches and dead-end gimmicks, while the aging stars protected their spots through backstage pull. Chris Benoit, one of the best in-ring performers alive at the time, got squashed in seconds during that stretch, just to keep an older name looking strong going into a pay-per-view. When those older stars finally broke down, there was nobody credible left to carry the company, and WCW collapsed hard enough that WWE bought the wreckage. WWE isn't anywhere near that kind of collapse right now, propped up by the Netflix deal and the UFC merger. The underlying habit, leaning on the past instead of building the future, is the same one that sank WCW in the first place. And now the ticket numbers suggest the safe bet formula itself is starting to wear out. It's a business decision dressed up as a wrestling decision, and right now, it always lands on the same handful of names. There's a deep bench of guys in their 20s and early 30s who look ready right now. Bron Breakker, Austin Theory, Dominic Mysterio, Oba Femi, Trick Williams, Javon Evans. On paper, that's the next decade of the company. So, if you're new to this channel, this is what we do here. Go through the actual research on wrestling storylines instead of just reacting to them. Hit subscribe if that's your thing, and let's get back into it. Bron Breakker and Austin Theory are tag champions right now, not singles contenders, holding gold in a division that isn't the one either of them was built for. Theory's story shows exactly what happens when WWE actually tries to build someone young and gets it wrong anyway. He was Vince McMahon's hand-picked project back in 2022, put in high-profile segments with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar, and The Rock, and made the youngest Money in the Bank winner in company history. Then, he lost his cash-in attempt, not even on the main title, but on Seth Rollins' secondary belt. A year later, John Cena spent an entire promo publicly dismantling him on the mic, telling the world Theory's crowd reactions weren't even real. Theory won the actual match at WrestleMania on a cheap finish, and gained almost nothing from it. The push meant to make him a star ended up teaching the audience not to take him seriously. So what happened to the guy WWE spent all last year positioning as its next monster heel? Bron Breakker won the NXT Championship, got called up straight into the vision division and looked like a lock for a world title run. In January, he got his shot at CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship and lost. Then, a hernia needed surgery and 2 months of momentum disappeared. He came back at WrestleMania 42 into a tag team with Austin Theory instead of back into the singles picture, and reports since have described him as genuinely frustrated with the direction. A 28-year-old with a real case to be the company's next top heel parked in the tag division while Obafemi got the run that used to have Breaker's name attached to it. This isn't a new habit either. Go back to October 2019, the debut episode of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. Kofi Kingston had just won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania that year in a story the entire audience had fallen in love with. 11 years of being a reliable undercard guy finally paying off. WWE needed a spectacle for the Fox premiere. Kingston defended the title against Brock Lesnar. Lesnar hit one F5, pin, 9 seconds. 11 years of investment gone in less time than it takes to read this sentence out loud. A few months later, Bray Wyatt was one of the hottest acts in the company as The Fiend, a genuinely unsettling character that took months to build. WWE booked him to lose the title to Bill Goldberg, 53 years old at the time, in a 3-minute match built around a handful of spears. It's still considered one of the worst booking decisions in company history, and it did exactly what putting a part-timer over a hot act always does. It told the audience the full-time roster is just holding the spot until someone from the old days wants it back. Dominic Mysterio has turned himself into one of the best heel characters on the roster, and it still hasn't moved him past the Intercontinental title. Obafemi looks like a genuine outlier, a 27-year-old who beat Brock Lesnar clean at WrestleMania. Trick Williams is 31 and just now getting his first real look with the United States Championship. Even when a younger name breaks through, it tends to function as the exception that keeps the rule intact. Themi getting a marquee run against Lesnar is a real opportunity for him. It's also a rivalry against the same gatekeeper standing in front of almost everyone else on this list. Javon Evans is 22 and already doing things in the ring that get compared to peak Rey Mysterio. He has exactly the kind of range this next wave needs. The gap between him and the main event picture has nothing to do with what he can actually do in the ring. The delay is the problem here. How long it took to get any of them this far, and how much further they still have to go before anyone lets them near the top of the card. Even the system built to develop these guys works against them. Wrestlers used to arrive on national television in their early 20s, straight off the independent circuit, ready for a push. Now they spend 3 to 5 years inside the Performance Center in NXT before anyone calls them up, polishing camera work and character before they're considered ready. Carmelo Hayes was 31 when he finally got a real main roster look. Ethan Page didn't get his call up until this spring, at 36, after nearly 2 years in NXT. Joe Gacy is 36 and still working to establish himself on the main roster. These aren't rookies. These are wrestlers who spent years being polished inside a system built to protect the main roster from unfinished talent, and by the time they're finished, they've used up the exact years that used to define a rising prospect. Even the veterans leaving the roster see the problem. Styles retired earlier this year, and one of the first things he said about his next chapter was wanting to work with WWE's younger talent, helping get them ready for the main roster faster. A 48-year-old who just spent years near the top of the card is already thinking about how to fix the exact bottleneck that kept guys underneath him waiting. Sami Zayn's story took over 20 years. Independent shows, a tag team run with Kevin Owens, an Intercontinental title, a United States title, a role carrying one of the best storylines WWE has told in a decade. Every rung on the ladder, except the top one. At Night of Champions in Riyadh, in a triple threat against Cody Rhodes and Gunther, Zayn finally got there. 20 minutes of a match that had the building screaming before the finish even happened. Rhodes went for a second crossroads. Zayn slipped it, rolled him up, 3 count. Grand Slam champion, first world title of his career. He cried accepting the belt. 9 days later, on Raw in Chicago, Gunther powerbombed Cody Rhodes through a table before Rhodes could even get to his rematch. The spot opened up, the music hit, CM Punk walked out. Chicago lost its mind. Punk's own hometown, Allstate Arena, erupting the second that entrance music hit. It's the kind of pop that makes for an incredible moment in isolation and a brutal one in context. Because the loudest reaction of the night came from taking the title away from the guy who just made history with it 9 days earlier. Zayn hit him with GTS, Punk's own move, twice, and still couldn't put him away. Punk came back with a haluva kick and a GTS of his own, and just like that, the title that took 20 years to win was gone in 9 days. Same night, same show, Austin Theory won back the World Tag Team Championship with Bron Breakker. Now he's back in the tag division, on the same broadcast where Zayn just got reminded exactly where the ceiling sits. 2 guys, 1 show, the same message delivered twice. Now put LA Knight next to that. Knight didn't arrive as an unknown either. He came in from Impact Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance, already an experienced, polished talent, 38 years old when he joined the developmental system in 2021. Reports at the time had him on the roster cut list more than once, with people inside the company pointing at his age as the reason. He got repackaged into a fashion manager gimmick, dropped it, rebuilt his own character from scratch, and turned himself into one of the most reliably over guys on the roster anyway. When it came time to hand out the Money in the Bank briefcase, the traditional launching pad for a future world champion, WWE bypassed him. He picked up the United States Championship a couple of times, which matters, but a secondary title was always going to be the ceiling if the top of the card stayed out of reach. Knight is 43 now. He's never gotten anywhere close to 9 days as a world champion, because he's never gotten the reign at all, despite years of pulling some of the loudest reactions on the roster. Former WWE announcer Jonathan Coachman has said publicly that the company knows exactly how over Knight is, and still has no interest in letting him get any bigger than he already is. Talking about an earlier title loss, Coachman put the reason plainly. Once you get to the late 30s and early 40s, things start to change. He's been saying Knight is 44 for months. Knight is 43. The guy citing Knight's age as the ceiling can't even get the number right, and WWE doesn't need him to. The number does the work either way. Damian Priest is 43 too, the exact same age as Knight, and he's already been a world heavyweight champion, cashing in Money in the Bank to win it back in 2024. Same number, completely different outcome. The same age that gets treated as a disqualifying factor for Knight is nothing at all for Punk. 47 versus 43, and only one of them gets treated like the clock is running out. Knight didn't get 9 days, he got 0. And the age excuse doesn't hold up against the guy standing in the ring wearing the title right now. The most surprising part of this whole story is on the other side of the roster completely. Walk over to the women's side of the roster and the entire pattern breaks. Tiffany Stratton cashed in Money in the Bank and won the women's championship at 25. Rhea Ripley, the face of the division, is 29. Roxanne Perez won NXT Gold within her first year in the company and carried that momentum straight to the main roster. No half-decade wait required. Cora Jade is doing the same thing in NXT right now. Sol Ruca is 26 and already a champion. Liv Morgan and Io Sky both won their first world titles before 30. Put the two rosters side by side and the age gap is real, not something you have to squint to see. The men skew into the high 30s and low 40s across the main roster. The women's division sits noticeably younger, closer to the mid-20s to late 20s among the champions, because the company has kept feeding it new title holders, instead of parking the belts on the same handful of names. There's a real reason the gap exists. The modern women's division only really got rebuilt starting around 2015, so there's no equivalent of a 47-year-old CM Punk who's occupied the top spot since before some of these women started wrestling. The men's side never got that kind of reset. It just kept adding names to the same pile, year after year, without ever clearing the table. Nobody in WWE management is sitting in a room worrying that these women have a limited shelf life. Nobody is telling Stratton to wait a few more years before trusting her to carry a company. She won the title at 25 because she was ready at 25, and WWE trusted the audience to get behind her at that age, without a decade of build-up first. That's what kills the age excuse completely. WWE knows exactly how to build a young champion, market one, and put a title on one. It's done it repeatedly, on the same roster, during the same years it kept telling LA Knight and Sami Zayn to wait their turn. The excuse was always about which stars WWE had already decided were worth the risk, long before any title match happened. Punk being great at 47 isn't in question. What actually matters, Breaker, Theory, Dominic, Femi, Williams, Evans, every one of them will keep walking out to their music every single week, doing their entrance, hitting their signature spot, selling merchandise in the back of the arena, for years, waiting for a chance that keeps going to someone who was already a star a decade before they debuted. They'll show up again next week too. This is happening right now, on the current show, to guys with names you already know. That's the part that should embarrass everyone signing off on the current plan. Sami Zayn got 9 days to feel what that finally looked like. Most of the guys behind him haven't gotten 9 minutes. That gap is the entire story in one sentence. One day the numbers catch up. Punk turns 50. Reigns turns 50. Lesnar retires for real. And when that day comes, WWE is going to need someone who spent years getting ready for a spot that never came. The belt doesn't ask how old you are. The people holding it back do.